First, I want to apologize to anyone who may have been anticipating these Citrus Plus reviews. No excuses, I was severely slacking. I think my last review was about 9 months ago, so it's been a while, but I'm back and ready to talk about the best ongoing Yuri manga, Citrus Plus. I missed 6 chapters, but today I'll only be covering chapters 18 through 21 since those are included in volume 4. With the exception of the Sayaka saga, Citrus Plus has been pretty tame as it pertains to the drama in the series, especially in comparison to its predecessor. The reasons for this is quite simple. For one, mostly all of our characters are established, so there isn't a threat of a new challenger shaking up the series, as we saw characters like Matsuri, Mitsuko, and Shiropon do in their introductions. 2, Citrus Plus is technically a big flashback, since we already know from the original series that Yuzu and Mei do in fact get married, which means at the end of the day, the outcome of the series is set in stone, so the only surprises we'll get is the process in which the conclusion happens or events that concern other characters. Lastly, and I'm proud to say this, Yuzu and Mei are much more mature. Sure, they still have communication issues and are insecure at times, but they're human. The issues they now face in the story as opposed to what needed to be overcome in the OG series is normal. It used to be Mei having to fight the burden of upholding the entire legacy of the Aihara family to now Mei having trouble figuring out what Yuzu would like for her birthday. And branching off of that, the dilemma of this volume is centered around Yuzu's birthday. Like most anime/manga, conveniently, the parents are going to be busy during a crucial time. Seriously though, every series I watch or read, the parents are always on business trips or something. Mei is also busy on the day of Yuzu's birthday, so the Aihara girls decide to postpone the celebration. Typically this would be fine, but the timing is terrible for Yuzu, who look forward to finding relief in her studies on her birthday. Before I go further with that point, I had to mention that I'm glad Yuzu taking studying seriously has been a recurring plot point to springboard bigger events. For example, if Yuzu never took studying seriously, she wouldn't have met Shiropon, who she only interacted with because of them taking summer school. And of course, that meeting sparked an entire arc in Citrus. And now since Yuzu is feeling the fatigue of studying, the postponement of her birthday is affecting her in ways it probably wouldn't under normal conditions. Thus, Mei feels the need to take charge and do something for Yuzu. So let's talk about the girl known as Mei Aihara. Fun fact about myself, Mei at one point in Citrus was my least favorite character, and while she still isn't in my top 3 favorite Citrus characters, I had to acknowledge her growth. Mei wasn't a character who would clearly voice her true thoughts. A lot of the time, she would be cryptic, and this would lead to a lot of the misunderstandings that existed in Citrus. However, now, Mei is speaking her mind explicitly so that everyone can understand her properly. Mei's body language can be confusing, her resting cold expression sits on her face like a mask, so she's someone that has to make herself clear in her words. Not only that, but another part of Mei's evolution is her accepting help. Mei would try to do everything by herself a lot of the times, and this isn't just exclusive to something tangible like student council work. It extends to her emotions, which she often bottled up. Mei getting advice from Momokino and Matsuri shows her progression as a character, since it's not something she'd do as the Mei at the start of Citrus. So props to Mei. I also want to give props to Momokino. No matter what, she always has Mei's back 100%. While I think Matsuri is a close second, to me, Momokino is the most reliable friend in Citrus. She's never bailed on Mei once, and her actions are mostly in the benefit of her. You can say whatever you want about her big ass eyebrows, and those motherfuckers are huge, but Momokino is a great person to have in your camp. Speaking to the type of advice Momokino gave to Mei, it was a little too good for a person I assume has had no real relationship experience. Now, we know Momokino had a thing for Mei, and maybe her advice is a product of that along with self-reflection, but I want to suggest a theory of mine. What if Momokino has secretly been seeing someone else, and her love for that person was the foundation for the advice given to Mei, with the person I'm alluding to being my favorite senpai, Shiropon. Almost everyone in this series has their ships established or hinted towards. Mei and Yuzu, Harmin and Matsuri, Mitsuko and Kayo, Sayaka and Miyabi, and Momokino and Shirapon. Why I say this is because they are often grouped together whenever they are both in a plot, which isn't often, but in a series like Citrus is telling. I mean, the Matsuri and Harumi pairing has been a thing since that extra chapter in volume 3 of the original series, and years later, it's undeniable that's a canon ship. So maybe Shirapon and Momokino developed a romance in the background while everyone else was doing their own thing. After all, Momokino told a story to Mei at the end of chapter 19 that we were not privy towards, so maybe it had something to do with my theory. But that's all it is at this point. Chapter 20 set up for Yuzu to hang out at Harumi's place for her birthday, and I'm excited to see that. Yuzu has spent the night over there before, but that's told to us rather than shown to us. I want to see Yuzu and Harumi's grandma interact because Harumi's grandma is pretty cool. It's heavily implied that Harumi gets her Gyaru style from her grandma, so in a sense, she's the godmother of Gyaru. I also want to see Yuzu and Mitsuko interact. I don't think those two have had a real conversation past Mitsuko's introduction arc, so I like to see them talk it up a bit. Harumi is usually uncomfortable around her sister, so I wonder how she'd act with Yuzu around her for support. Surprisingly, there's not much for me to say about Yuzu. Even though this arc revolves around her birthday, it's more so seeing how Mei deals with it rather than Yuzu. I already talked about Yuzu feeling burnt out, and that's pretty much all there is to it, but I must say, like always, Yuzu's smile is something like magic. Credit to Saburo Uda, her art is great in all aspects, but I really think she excels in facial expressions. Whether someone is smiling or crying, Saburo Uda's art truly makes you feel emotions in the panel. It's like when Yuzu smiles, I feel the room gets a little brighter. And since I'm on that subject, man, I don't think Saburo Uda gets nearly the amount of praise she deserves for her outfits. It's something I myself didn't take much notice to, but look at some of the clothes she has her characters wear. It's like a fashion show, and past it being cool to look at, it stays consistent to the youth of the cast and the Gyaru lifestyle of characters like Yuzu, Harumi, and Matsuri. The last segment to talk about is centered around my favorite character of Citrus, Matsuri Mizusawa. So, as I said earlier, Mei sought the counsel of Matsuri, which definitely helped her, but one has to question Matsuri's credentials. Matsuri told Mei, and I quote,
"I'd been keeping this a secret until now, but the thing is, I've been in a relationship with someone for a long time now. Always have been."
Now, I've seen a small portion of people in the fandom confused by this, saying, "What happened to Harumi?" But I think it's very obvious that Matsuri was lying. The incentive to lie is simple. Matsuri wanted to appear to be knowledgeable about the topic of love, and I think she was embarrassed that Mei countered her trolling, albeit unknowingly. The real question to ask is not whether Matsuri was lying or not, but whether her lie was based on some truth. We saw Matsuri playing some type of Otomi game at the start of the chapter, so maybe she was referencing that as her love experience, or maybe it was based on Matsuri's delusion that she and Harumi are already an item. I refer you to volume 5 special 2 of the original Citrus, in which Matsuri meets Nene for the first time and introduces herself as Harumi's girlfriend. If Matsuri wasn't drawn from her times playing love simulation games, I feel like she had to have been talking about being in a quote relationship unquote with Harumi. Besides that, Matsuri actually gave advice that hit the nail on its head. It doesn't really matter what Mei gives Yuzu for her birthday, as long as it's from her. Yuzu would likely love it knowing her personality, even if that gift was Mei herself, which was a funny suggestion on Matsuri's part. I do think Yuzu would actually like that. I'm sure most people would. I just have to respect that Matsuri seems to care more about Yuzu and Mei's sex life than they do themselves. I can't count how many times Matsuri has tried to push them into making a move on each other. She serves as a proxy for the fandom in that way. I was happy we saw Matsuri and Mei hang out together. They definitely are a rare pair that hardly interacts on a one-on-one level. And in the same way Momokino was the unrequited lover of Mei that ended up helping Yuzu in the OG series, Matsuri was the unrequited lover of Yuzu that is helping Mei in Citrus Plus. It's cool how some dynamics run parallel to each other like that. But people, that is it for this review. I enjoyed catching up to Citrus, even though it was only like 2 chapters, but I reread some of the other chapters because it's been a long time since I read them. All right, let me know what you thought about chapter 21 and the other chapters 18 through 21, in fact. So yeah, comment down below what you thought about the chapters. I enjoyed them for the most part. All right, it wasn't amazing or anything like that. I don't think they were as good as the stretch that we had pushing the Harumi and Matsuri ship. Bias out, but it is what it is. But I thought it was good nonetheless. It's good to see some things from May and have something that's really focused on her growth as a character, or seeing the fruits of that labor that was put into the growth of her character. So yeah, overall pretty good. But guys, that is it for me. I am Satsuki the Savage. Like, comment, subscribe. I am out.
Tasting your soul, you're not in control, just giving you goals. Scared of your past, the future is closed. The start is the end is a start. They both are the same, can't tell them apart. Nigga, that's cuz the intro was the outro.